Well. Good morning, good people. Good morning. Hope the day finds you doing well. Sharks in the water. Yesterday I put a post on, well, not yesterday, but a couple of days ago, I put a post on my Facebook page about one Jasmine Crockett. Jasmine Crockett is the representative in Texas, and she goes around saying some of the most outrageous statements, trying to make herself out to be a ghetto gal when she lived a privileged life. But of course, that's lost on those in the mainstream media and her supporters. But I digress. But anyway, I let this statement, or I left a post on my Facebook page where she says, black Republicans, they're not, basically what she was saying, because her grammar was just all messed up, really. But basically what she was saying was that black people are not Republicans because they think, the other side is KKK and all that and everything. Which, someone responded and said she's never learned her history because the KKK was started by the Democrat Party, Nathan Bedford Forrest. And another thing that they don't teach you is that there were some blacks who were part of the KKK too, just so you know that. But anyway, person came on there, she said, well, she must have flunked her history class, and blah, blah, blah. And I came in, I said, I respectfully disagree. I think she did pass her history class because they don't teach this in history class. I know it wasn't taught to me. This is stuff I'm just learning within the past, I guess you can say 15, 20 years, because it wasn't taught to me. And everywhere I go, this wasn't taught, that, the KKK was started by the Democrat Party. It's something I learned within maybe the past 15, 20 years, maybe a little bit longer than that. But this person responded to me and said, well, I went to a private school. And I said, oh, okay, you're probably right, because I went to a public school where they don't teach that. But I had another friend come on because I said that, needless to say, Jasmine Crockett is dumber than a bag of rocks. My apology to the rocks. And this other person came on and said, well, Vincent, I'm disappointed in you because, we need to set the example, being Christians and everything. And maybe she's right. Maybe she is. But here's the problem I have with a situation like this. Here's the problem. This is the main problem I have with the situation. A lot of times, our correcting of somebody has to deal with somebody that we favor. What do I mean by that? Now, if I said that Marjorie Taylor Greene was dumber than a bunch of rocks, I'm pretty sure this friend wouldn't have said anything. She wouldn't have come up and said, we need to be the example and, yada, yada, yada. But because somebody who is popular, who's a liberal black woman, who's really popular, gaining popularity with a lot of people in the black in the black circles, black communities and everything, now you got to correct me. Now, where's all this when people make fun of and say things about Donald Trump? And I'm talking about so-called Christian folk who do this. Say all kinds of names about Donald Trump. Nobody bats an eye. But when one of our favorite superstars gets checked out, if you know what I mean, oh, all of a sudden, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. You need to be ashamed of yourself. You need to be better than that. We need to be an example and everything. Okay, where's all this when Donald Trump and others on the right side politically get called all kinds of terrible names? And I'm not trying to cape for them or anything like that. I'm not trying to cape for anybody, you know. One thing someone would probably ask me is, well, how would you like it if someone called you these names? And my response would be, no, I wouldn't like it. No, I wouldn't. But there's nothing I can do about it. People talk about me all the time. And I don't sit up huddled in a corner and, oh, the people are against me and everything. I've been called some of the worst names you ever want to be called. No, I don't like it, but there's nothing I can do about it. People are going to talk. People are going to say things. And this person said, well, it doesn't matter what your view is politically. You should be, okay, well, then okay, all right, I understand that. But why don't you do the same when people start talking about folks who don't agree with you politically? Because I see it all the time. And I've noticed the pattern for decades. Oh, you talk about a white conservative. No one bats an eye. Nobody comes up and says, "Oh, you need to be the better example and everything." But you say something about a black liberal or a white liberal, all of a sudden, you need to repent. Basically, you need to be the example and all that and everything. And I, for one, I don't think I did anything wrong by saying that Jasmine Crockett is dumb as a bunch of rocks. But the people who are really dumb are the people who support her, really. Those of you all who support these liberals, these black liberals, something is wrong up there, because you are willing to ignore everything about these people. For what reason? Why? They support those who really don't have your best interests at heart. All they do is sprinkle a little sugar on your tongue so you can vote for them. That's all they do. That's all they do. And I'm talking about Christian folk as well. Now, I don't understand some of these Christian folk that want to vote for someone because of civil rights. And these civil rights people, they are the same people who vote for abortion. They're the same people who vote for homosexual rights. But you will sit here and vote for this person because they're about civil rights. And I think this is a casualty of the civil rights movement, because we think when a person is preaching civil rights, we think they're preaching the gospel, and they're not. Martin Luther King, all these other civil rights activists, I very rarely, if ever, hear about them talk about the grace of Jesus Christ. His finished work on the cross, his resurrection from the dead. Some of them don't even believe in that. Martin Luther King didn't believe in the resurrection of Christ. He didn't even believe that Jesus was God. And I know that's going to get me in trouble with a lot of you MLK idolaters out there. I know it is. But let's just be 100%. But we think preaching civil rights, we don't care what the point of view of the person is that is preaching civil rights, as long as they're preaching civil rights. They could be an atheist and preach civil rights, and we'll all follow after that person. Raphael Warnock is a good example. But I'm going all over the place right now. But I notice these people only defend those that they support, but they don't defend those who they don't support. Or if they do defend them, they'll say, well, this shouldn't have happened to this person, but it doesn't take away the fact that they were hateful, you know, like with the recent death of Charlie Kirk. Then we don't need your sympathies then. If you're going to come out and say, well, it shouldn't have happened that way, but he was a hateful person. No, that's not showing sympathy at all. Keep your sympathies to yourself. But anyway, I also wanted to talk about another case that a few months ago, it came across my view. And I'm surprised that this didn't make it really nationwide, like, you know, cases like with Breonna Taylor or George Floyd. This girl named Bianca Ellis, last year, she follows his mother and child into the parking lot of a grocery store. First of all, she stole 2 knives from a thrift store. And she followed his mother and child out into the parking lot in, I think it was Ohio. And she proceeds to stab both of them, the mother and the child. They said the incident took place in like 5 seconds. The mother and child were injured, but the 3-year-old child didn't survive his injuries. And they caught the lady sometime later. No, the monster. I'll say the monster because this was no lady. They caught the monster sometime later, and she was arrested for murder. She was convicted of murder. And while they were, you know, reading the charges against her in court, she's sitting there laughing and thinking it's, you know, smiling at the camera, you know, think it's funny. Now, the thing about this case is, and I'm going to tell you why it didn't make it nationwide. Because the woman who committed the evil deed was black and the little kid was white. Now, I'm building up to something here. She was black, 32-year-old woman. I think she's 34 now. 32-year-old woman, 32-year-old black woman. Very disrespectful. And she stabs a little white kid. This is why it didn't go nationwide, because had she been a white woman, and y'all know I'm telling the truth, had she been a white woman and she just randomly stabbed a 3-year-old black kid, we would have all lost our minds. Ben Crump, Al Sharpton, Roland Martin, all of them would have said their thing. We'd have protests in the streets. No justice, no peace. Businesses will be burned down, windows broken, random passers-by on the streets would be assaulted, and we'd have no problem with it. We'd have no problem with seeing all these atrocities being committed because a 3-year-old black kid got killed. Now, here's my thing. The death of a child, I don't care if they're white, black, yellow, brown, red, whatever. When you kill a child in that way, it's a heinous crime. I don't care the skin color of the child or whatever. But the attitude of a lot of people, it will probably go something like this. Well, justice has been served. Okay, well then, Justice was served in so-called justice was served with George Floyd. I really don't think justice was served then, because it was an act of injustice against Derek Chauvin, who should not be in jail. But we still talk about George Floyd. We still talk about him. We still talk about Breonna Taylor. And Tamir Rice and all the rest of them. We still talk about that. But these people will say, well, justice has been served, so there's no reason for, but wait a minute, before justice was served, we still didn't hear anything from you. We didn't hear anything from you. And the attitude is probably like, yeah, just another little white kid, But now they understand what we go through. You don't go through that. I don't know who the we are. I don't know who you're talking about, what we go through. You certainly don't go through it. I know I don't go through it. And I'm not sitting here saying that racism doesn't exist. It does. But it's not so widespread as we make it out to be. And if we're going to talk about racism, let's talk about racism on both sides. The other day I heard a preacher. He said that black people cannot be racist. We can be biased, we can be prejudiced, but we can't be racist. How come we can't be racist? How is it that we can't be racist? And what do you think bias and prejudice is? Back in the days when they were marching in the civil rights era and everything, that's what they called racism, was racial prejudice. Prejudice and bias, that is what racism is. That's what it consists of. So when you sit there and say, well, I can't be racist, but I can be biased and prejudiced, you act like that lessens the blow a little bit. No, it's still not good. It's still the sin of partiality. You're favoring somebody because of how they look or their skin color or their prestige or whatever. It's still partiality. And in this case, it's partiality because of skin color. And this was a guy who led me to Christ, so to speak. He led me to Christ. He's the reason why I'm a Christian today. But he gets up there and he says, black people can't be racist. We can be prejudiced. We can be biased. That makes everything a little bit more, that makes everything all better right now. Oh, yeah, okay. No, black people can be racist. But anyway, when I saw this case with this girl, Bianca Ellis, and the gall, the arrogance of this girl. They asked her a question. She said, "See." They said, "I don't know what "see" means." She said, "Yes." She being disrespectful, and she knows what she is doing. People say, "Oh, she was insane and she was out of her mind and everything." Well, if that's the case, then she shouldn't have been out on the streets. She's had run-ins with the law before. But when they read when they finally sentenced her, they sentenced her to life without parole. I have a problem with that. I have a serious problem with that. And you all can sit there and say, well, you can't be, if you're for the death penalty, don't you want to be sure that everybody, that they're sure that this person did it? She did it. They pointed her out. They know who she is. She did it. She should have gotten the death penalty. She should have gotten the death penalty. And I know a lot of people, they these bleeding heart folks and everything, they want, oh no, don't you want God to have mercy on her? Yeah, I do. I hope God has mercy on her before she dies. But she deserves a death penalty. And the reason why a lot of these people should be given the death penalty is because I don't think taxpayers should be footing the bill to keep these people alive when they committed such a heinous act. She got off easy. Somewhere down the road, someone might say, well, her civil rights were violated, so let's, she still has a chance. Might be a small chance, but she still has a chance to get out of prison. And we're taking care of her medical. We're taking care of her dental. If she wants to go to school, we're footing the bill for that. No, she should have gotten the death penalty. But the good thing out of all this is she doesn't have the possibility of parole, even though that could change in the future. Because I don't know where the mentality is of some of these judges. See, the problem isn't the police. The problem is the judges who keep letting these people out. You got a person, they're insane or whatever, and instead of institutionalizing them, you let them run the streets, and then they commit a heinous act like this. And when people say, well, they did it because they were, insane and whatever, I think anyone who commits an act of murder, and when I say murder, I'm not talking about self-defense or an accident or something like that. I'm talking about hardcore, cold-blooded murder. You should get the death penalty. Automatic. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. You should get the death penalty. Get your trial. And when you're convicted, and I believe we shouldn't have people on death row for no 30 or 20, 30. I don't think anyone should be on death row for 10 years. Although I'll tolerate it, I'll tolerate a year, but I don't even think they should get that long. I say when a person is given the death penalty, all the evidence points to this person and whatever, no shadow of a doubt, give them a week. You got a week to talk to your next of kin, think about what you've done, and a week later, boom. Maybe even a day. Maybe say, okay, you've been convicted of murder and whatever. Okay, take them out to the firing, the shooting. What, I don't know what they call it. Take them to the gallows. Take them here. And folks, this is going to sound mean. It's going to sound mean. It's going to sound unchristian. But I don't believe it is. I think when they do these executions, they should do it publicly. Publicly. Out there in the open. Take them downtown. Say we got a gallows set up downtown, and this person is going to swing for murdering the people in this family. I don't care if it's a white person who murdered a family of black people or a black person who murdered a family of white people. They should meet the same fate. Now, that's not going to get rid of all murderers or anything like that, but I guarantee you crime will nosedive. I guarantee you, because folks be like, nah, I ain't playing that. You're going to still get some people trying to skirt by the system. But folks, this was horrific. What this lady, this monster did to this child. And because of race, this case didn't make it nationwide because the races of the people didn't fit the narrative. Now, if this had been a white woman, a white monster, let me say that, a white monster that had murdered an innocent black child, we would have lost our minds. But did you see white folks going out here and burning up businesses and attacking random people on the streets because this child got murdered? Nope. But had the roles been reversed, it would have been a different scenario. And I'm telling the truth. But anyway, you all, hope you all have a good day. Stay safe out there. This is Vincent E. Brown. I'm signing off. Until the next time, I'll see you on the rebound.